Hey there, TalentED listeners. Welcome back to another exciting episode. I'm super pumped today. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Skanson, and today we've got one of my edu crushes out there. Had a chance to listen to him multiple times around some really important work, and our guest is the amazing Paul Gorski. And let me give just a little bit of an intro for him. Paul's a true trailblazer in education. He's the brains behind the Equity Literacy Institute and EdChange, and for 25-ish years, he's been on a mission to help schools, district, colleges, organizations amp up their equity, their diversity efforts, and talk about making a difference and a timely difference. But that's not all. He's a writer. He's got 12 books, more than 70 articles under his belt, from tackling things like racial equity to poverty to trauma-informed education. Incredible wealth of knowledge, but he's also a father, a goofy dad, published poet, black belt in Tae Kwon Do, and even a gardener. Is there anything else that we need to know, Paul, before we keep going here?
No, that sounds like a pretty good, every time I hear somebody say the number of years I've been doing this, I always think, oh gosh, it's time again to revise that up a little bit, and then
Yeah.
then it's like a little sad. Like, oh
Well,
gosh,
we're
this
excited to
reminds
have
me
you.
of
We're really
reminds
excited to
me
have you here. So trust me, you're gonna want to watch the whole episode today. Paul, why don't you just give us a quick introduction? I mean, I gave you an introduction. Is there, like, tell us about yourself. Like, what makes Paul go?
Well, I've just been always really passionate about equity and justice issues ever since I was a kid, and didn't really find an outlet for that until I was maybe in my late teens, early 20s. And I just always knew that that's what I wanted to put my life into. So, I do that. And I just feel really lucky I'm in one of those situations where my sort of spiritual life and professional life interact with each other, and even my social life, I guess, in a
Yeah.
way. So many of my close friends are also people who are really committed to doing this work. So, working in community with awesome people, that's what makes me tick.
Paul, I just came across this this Japanese term, and I had not heard it before, but I know that it's out there, and I believe it's pronounced ikigai, which is like the convergence of everything that you were just talking about, like a vocation and profession and passion, and it comes to this centerpiece, and it sounds like that's the space that you're in right now, which is really amazing to kind of find yourself at the center of everything that you love and care about in your life, and to be able to make
Absolutely.
honestly, to be able to make money on it too. That's part of ikigai.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's sort of in a way the inverse. It's like I always pursued this passion and education, and also equity issues, and I never really thought of it as something that was going to lead to sort of a career. And that's why I always tell people, follow your passion. It might take a while to get there, but eventually, if you're passionate about it, you got a chance of, building something out of it. So I just feel, really lucky that I could follow my passion rather than following, money, or following,
Right.
a career. And then I was just lucky for it to kind of morph into a career.
Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of your work. So your work has actually had a profound impact on advancing equity, diversity efforts in education. Can you share with us one, like, particularly rewarding moment or success story that stands out from your journey?
Oh, wow. That's a really great question. It's kind of funny because so often in conversations about equity, we end up, it's very easy to end up talking about the negative stuff and the hard
Sure.
stuff. So it's almost like a pleasant surprise when somebody asks about
Yeah,
something
we're gonna keep it
positive.
positive.
So I really appreciate that. Most of my positive experiences. I've been working with schools and school districts, often situations. I'm actually thinking of a district that I won't name. That's actually in Minnesota. And when I came in, there was a lot of reluctance on part of leadership. Leadership was passionate and really wanted to do better around equity, but we're a little worried about controversy and worried about blowback and that sort of thing. So the holdup there, as in a lot of schools and districts I and my organization work with, wasn't really a lack of wanting to do better, but a lack of confidence in doing better. And I could just remember talking to this group of principals who were really passionate, but just sort of hesitant. I felt like if I do this, I don't know what the response is going to be. And, working with them over time to just develop, to develop sort of the confidence and the skills to do what they had envisioned really wanting to do, but just not feeling they were prepared to do. So anytime there's that kind of shift, I want to do it and I'm willing to do the work to prepare myself to do it. Those are always the best.
Gosh, courage is a great word there, because depending on the context of the community that you're in, some of this work can feel very, very controversial, but giving administrators the tools, the language to kind of navigate that is really one of your gifts, I think, in order on how to talk about it and from leadership aspect.
It's really tough because most people, even if they've gone through a teacher licensure or administrative licensure or any kind of licensure program, often what they learned about equity and diversity in those programs is not sufficient. And then they get in the position and they want to do more than they feel capable of doing it. And a lot of times it is just about confidence and courage and knowing, okay, there's probably, if I'm doing this honestly, there's probably going to be some blowback to it. But not many people with admin licensure learned in their leadership program, well, what do I do when I experience blowback from community groups or blowback from my own staff or whatever? So, it could be very empowering to learn some skills for how to do that.
So I mean, thinking about kind of this passion around advocacy for racial equity, how do you approach conversations about privilege in a way that fosters understanding and empathy between parties versus like combatantness? And that's a really big question. I understand that. But I mean, this is kind of what you're talking about with the being a courageous administrator, a courageous leader in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think part of what helps is my approach is not about sort of the sledgehammer approach where we're just sort of pounding people into submission with it. And I actually want to be careful there because I think sometimes people develop a reputation for having that approach when they don't actually have it. It's honest and direct, and then people hear it. And this is part of sort of the complexity of being a white person doing this work, is that I'm able to go in and say things and do things that my colleagues of color will be heard very differently if they say it, which gives me the responsibility to go in and actually say it. So I believe in starting with high expectations, that professional people are able to have these conversations and able to be honest. And you can't expect somebody to do something if they haven't been provided with the knowledge and skills to do it. So you got to work through developing the knowledge and skills. Giving people the knowledge and skills to do it. And then, that high expectations is really just about, we got to move at the pace of the people who are being harmed. And that's just the reality of it. And So how do we do that? What are the knowledge and skills we need to do that? And again, helping people develop the knowledge and skills that they can draw on to have just to even have productive conversations. And then the key is translating those conversations into action. And what does action look like? So, I think that's how you go about doing it. If you start the conversation with a debate about whether or not privilege exists, then you're putting a bunch of energy into a conversation that is nonsensical. So you start with the assumption white privilege exists. So we don't have to feel guilty about that or ashamed, but we do have to understand it. And we do have to be responsive to it. And we do have to work against it. Okay, so what are the knowledge and skills we need to work against it? I think that's the key.
Well, again, your commitment to supporting schools and organizations in this area of equity has been, I think we established over 2 decades. Is that correct, Paul? Right?
Yes.
And I'm sure the landscape has changed in those 2 decades. So, I mean, today, if we're looking at today for educators, what do you believe to be maybe one of the most significant challenges that educators face today in creating that really truly inclusive and equitable learning environments, knowing that it will never, ever be fully equitable? Or maybe it can be. I mean, you tell us.
Well, I think it's tough. I mean, I think in a school or classroom that is sitting in a society where there's all kinds of bias and inequity, and that's filled with people who are socialized in that society, it is quite difficult to imagine that we're going to wipe it all out. But despite that, that should be the goal.
Right.
So that just means we have to keep working at it. In terms of the challenges, I mean, I think one challenge is just sort of navigating the political climate right now, where things just feel more charged, and the people who are there's a very sort of well-organized and even nationally well-funded sort of anti-equity movement happening. And I think navigating that can present a lot of challenges. I think for people in the classroom, part of the challenge is I think a lot of people in their training to be teachers or counselors or administrators are prepared with a very sort of mitigative approach to this. And so that's what people think equity is. Well, if I can just add one reading by a Black author, then that's equity. I think the hard thing for people is wrapping their mind around more of a transformative approach. Like, what if we start with an equity commitment and then build out based on that commitment? Moving to that the bigger sort of just people grasping the scope of what needs to change in order to really create equity. And then I also think for classroom teachers, I think not being sure whether leadership is going to have their backs if they
I have heard that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we work with leadership on that. What does it mean to have your teachers' backs on that?
Well, I would be remiss if I did not talk about your newest book, Fix Injustice, Not Kids. It's got the attention. We talked a little bit about it off camera here, just about kind of the impact of what that's doing these days. But can you give us a sneak peek or tell us a little bit about that book and maybe a little promo on why you should read it? I know I'm going to be reading it, so.
Well, I should say first, give a shout out to Katie Swalwell, who wrote it with me. And some people might be familiar with Katie. Her background's in social studies ed, and she's just one of the most powerful, sort of brilliant equity and justice minds I've ever worked with. So everyone should go check out her work too. But the idea with Fix Injustice, Not Kids is we wanted to write a book for equity leaders that could include principals, superintendents, people like that, equity directors, but it really is a book for anybody who's trying to lead equity efforts, whether from a formal leadership position or an informal leadership position. The other thing we wanted to do differently is a lot of books for equity leadership are about sort of like these kind of blueprints, like if you just do this and then do that and then do that. And our fear is that kind of simplifies things a little bit too much. What we wanted to do is write about a series of values or principles that could guide equity leadership work and do a deep dive on the values and principles. So the book is actually titled after one of the principles, which is the fixing justice, not kids principle. That principle basically says that none of our equity efforts should go into adjusting anything about people who are marginalized, not their behaviors, their attitudes, their grittiness, nothing. It should focus on eliminating the conditions that are marginalizing people. And so each chapter takes sort of a principle or value like that and sort of explains it with stories and student narratives and that sort of thing.
Well, it sounds amazing, and I can't wait to get a copy. We know that it's selling really well on Amazon right now and is kind of leading some categories. So congratulations to both you and your co-author on that. I do have a question. This is a little bit of a turn here. We know that you are a black belt in Tae Kwon Do. This is correct.
Yes.
Okay. How has your martial arts journey influenced your work in education? Has there been any like surprise overlap of the two?
Oh, that's such a well. To clarify the black belt a little bit, I actually got my black belt when I was 11 years old. So it was so that was a while ago, and then I taught for a while, but there's quite a bit of overlap. I mean, a huge bit of overlap actually is that my teacher, my Taekwondo instructor, Master Lee, was a Korean immigrant, a recent Korean immigrant who was running this Taekwondo school or institute. And I started taking Taekwondo when I was maybe in second or third grade. He accepted me younger than his normal cutoff. And he became this hugely important role model for me. And me sort of being curious about his journey was, I mean, I was really lucky. I had, as a white kid, I had these amazing mentors of color in my life that really sort of, understanding working to understand their journey is part of what sparked my interest. But the main things that I got were that to me in terms of the overlap were probably a sense of community, sense of respect, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Living life in a way that's about doing the least harm and the most good.
And did you ever have to break boards at school as well? Don't answer that one. Don't answer that. You don't have to answer that one. Okay, here's some other quick ones. You ready, Paul? Pancakes or waffles, my man?
Waffles.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh gosh, probably. I think maybe the ability to fly would be cool.
That would be fun. Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
A karaoke song? Is that what you
I
asked?
say karaoke. I pronounce it wrong. Karaoke.
Oh, that's okay. I just wasn't sure. To be honest, nobody wants to hear me sing.
Isn't that the point of karaoke? Is that the non-singers get to sing and perform? I think I know this one. Cats or dogs?
I love both, but I grew up with cats, so I have a special place in my heart for cats.
All right. Would you rather travel to the past or the future? You get one ticket.
Oh man, do I get a ticket back or is it one?
Yeah, you can come back. You can come back. It's round trip.
Oh, definitely the past.
If you could trade places with anyone for a day, who would you swap with?
Probably someone who can sing.
And you'd hit the karaoke bar right away, right?
I'd go straight to the karaoke bar.
Uh,
Yeah.
what's the most bizarre thing you've ever eaten?
Crickets. A cricket.
Okay. Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
Oh man. There are some places in the world where you can be at the mountains and on the beach at the same time, like Croatia. So
There you go. You can do both.
yeah.
That's a maximizer there. I gotta say, I've never heard anybody give me that answer before. That's awesome. Is there a missing flavor of ice cream out there that you think needs to get some attention?
Oh wow.
I said these are gonna be fun. I didn't say they're gonna be easy.
There's so many great flavors, but anything that has a lot of peanut butter and a lot of chocolate in it, that's sort of what I'm going.
I think those are good combinations. Okay, Paul, finally, as we wrap up here, like, do you have a call to action for educators or aspiring educators who are eager to make an impact in this area, to be for their students to have a more equitable and inclusive future?
Absolutely. I mean, my best call to action is to organize, get with other people who are passionate about the same thing, and build a support system to do that. And the key is to act, and remember that all the things we do to prepare to act are not the actions. The actions are the actual actions. So we got to do more than a book group, more than a community dialogue, more than listening sessions. The question is, what do we do with what we learn through all of those things? So just making sure that the action is actual action.
Yeah, I love it.
Will propel us forward.
The call to action is actually just take action. Just do something with it. Well, Paul, this has been amazing. I as you know, I think I said it at the very beginning, but I don't think anybody else has used this term, but I'm trying to coin this term around edu-crushes, and I've got a few edu-crushes out there. And Paul, you're an edu-crush for me. I love the content that you have and the way that you approach it. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, if you want to work with Paul, he's available in different formats. But I would suggest being on the receiving end of some of his professional development. His professional development is awesome. Take advantage of it. Let him work with your administrators, your leaders, to get the tools to do some work around this. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests, please contact us. And of course, if you want to work with Paul, we'd be happy to set you up with Paul and get you working with him. And until next time, I want everybody to keep learning, keep growing, and stay PKS, which is positive, kind, and supportive. Thanks, everybody.